everyone. It's Enjoy English School. I'm Chris Gorski.
I'm Antony.
Today is November 26th. We're looking at pages 56 and 57 in your magazine. And our story today is Composition, High School Students' Favorite Movie Genres.
没错，我们这次呢要介绍的是图表写作。各位，我不晓得你们喜欢看什么样的电影哦。那我们今天这个主题呢，最有趣的事情是高中生最喜欢的电影类型是什么？那我们在做图表写作的时候有许多技巧，我们马上要跟各位一同分享哦。
High school students' favorite movie genres. By examining the bar graph, one can clearly see what types of movies high school students generally prefer. In total, 55% of students favor comedies and action films over the other genres. In third place is drama at 20%, followed by science fiction at 15%, with horror and romance films both at 5%. Although the reasons for these choices are not given, I have some theories. Comedies tend to attract those who like humor. Action movies, meanwhile, appeal to our sense of adventure. My own preference is for horror films because they always make me feel excited and anxious at the same time. These intense feelings never fail to leave me both satisfied and wanting more. Although this type of movie isn't very popular among high school students, it simply proves that not everyone has the same tastes.
All right, so before we jump into paragraph 1, we probably should talk about this new style and format. But first, I want to say that when I was a student in math and social studies, we would get bar graphs and pie charts on our big tests and our final exams. I was always so happy because I knew these are the easiest questions for me. Some people thought they were really hard, but these were always easy. I was like, 100, here we go.
Wow, OK， 所以老师说呢，在他以往在做那个数学啦，或者是在做那种社会科学的时候，这种考试的时候，一看到这种柱状图，或者是老师刚刚讲那种 pie chart， 他就 yes， 太棒了。这种题目呢，其实相对来讲是比较简单的哦。那我们来看看到底要怎么样处理这一类的题型咯。
That's right. So before we go into paragraph 1, we do have a composition today, but we don't have the usual kind of look at the picture and write a story. We know that stories are going to almost always be in the past tense. And so you want to study things like regular and irregular verbs. You want to study past tense, past continuous, past passive. But we don't have that today.
没错，我们以往的话提到故事的时候，都会提到说，我们要复习我们的时态啊这些东西的。但是这种题型的话，完全不用特别去注意到这个地方，什么都没有，太棒了。我们来看一下这个提示哦，它提示上面写说，下方图表呈现的是台湾高中生偏好的电影类型，请根据该图写一篇文长至少120到130个单词的文章。文分两段，这个地方审题要特别注意咯。第一段他写的内容是什么呢？描述该图表所呈现的内容，还有可能的原因。然后第二段呢，这是叙述自己喜欢的这种电影类型，还有说明理由。我们先审题好之后，我们就可以继续往下看了。
Now, we also want to be thinking, because this is a bar graph, because we have a chart, we're going to be using a lot more of the present tenses. Simple present tense. 要小心 verb 加 s. You need to check that 100 times. We will be thinking about present passive voice. That's another be verb plus your past participles. be 动词加过去分词. And you might see some present continuous in here too.
OK， 所以在这里的话，时态上面，因为我们没有要讲故事，所以说使用到多半是现在，现在单纯式，现在有的时候会用到现在进行式，然后特别注意的时候，有的时候是第三人称单数的主词的话，动词要记得加 s， 这是要特别小心的地方。
Check that 100 times over. Now, one more thing we also want to talk about, and honestly, I think a lot of teachers don't like when I think moms and dads don't like when I tell their kids this. You don't always need to know what the words mean. There are plenty of times where you can fake it until you can make it. So we have a bunch of vocabulary words here, and we have the Chinese. But let's say you didn't have the Chinese. Comedy, action, drama, science fiction, horror, romance. All of those are pretty hard words that you might not know. But we do know these are about movies. So we could kind of use a little bit of logic and kind of guess what some of these words mean, and then you just write about them. You don't actually need to know what any of these words mean.
没错，所以很多时候呢，老师就提到说，有的时候你可以看上下文的语境来去猜测它的内容。像我们知道他在讲电影类型嘛，那在这边的话，因为我们都有这些中文的翻译、喜剧、动作等等，但如果你在考试的时候没有碰到这些翻译的话，你还是可以大略上推断得出到底是什么样的情况，不见得一定要每个字认得你才可以写下去。老师刚刚有提到一句话 ，fake it till you make it， 意思就是说，你就先开始假装你会，到最后你就真的懂，真的会了。
Now, I don't tell you this because I want you to be lazy. 我的问题是，我常常看到学生，他们看到一个单词 they see one word they don't know and they freeze. They don't do anything. They can't do anything. Please don't do that. You can just continue writing, and maybe 你这一块错了。But 那你可以继续写 and you'll get a lot more points. 留空白 you have a 0.
没错，所以在这里的话，不要碰到单词不会的，就这样傻在那个地方，就没有办法继续下去。千万别这么做。其实还是有很多的这种做法，我们可以跳过、绕过，最后从语境中想出那个单词的意思的哦。
Okay, let's get into paragraph 1 finally and pay attention to the tenses. By examining the bar graph, one can clearly see what types of movies high school students generally prefer.
好，我们先看到第一段这个地方，在第一句话里，他就说 by examining the bar graph 就是我们讲的这个柱状图，你所看到的。老师刚刚有提到那个 pie chart 就是圆饼图，之后我们都有陆陆续续有机会可以跟大家介绍不同类型的图表。在这边的话，我们是 bar graph。就是指这个柱状图，在仔细看过这个柱状图之后呢 ，one can clearly see what types of movies high school students generally prefer。然后这边他讲说，我们就可以看得出来 what types of movies。然后这边讲说，到底什么类型的电影是高中生们比较一般来讲比较喜欢的电影了。
Examining is a gerund here because your subject can't be a verb. You need to make it a noun. Our next sentence says, in total, 55% of students favor comedies and action films over the other genres.
好，接下来我们看第二句话。第二句话里面呢，其实我们在看第一句跟第二句的时候，要特别去注意到每句话的功能。第一句话的功能就是告诉你这个图表本身的主题是什么。接下来我们就要进入它详细的一些数值的那种 facts。好的，在这边的话，它 in total， 好，整体来说呢 ，55% of students， 好，有55%的学生 favor something over something else。意思就是指比较喜欢前面那个 over 后面接的东西是比较没有那么喜欢的。那这个地方第一个部分 favor comedies and action films， 好，他是比较喜欢喜剧片跟动作片。在这里他做到一个非常好的技巧，叫做 grouping， 就是归类的意思。等于是说，如果今天有很多细项，你不可能每个细项都把它每一个都讲，这样的话文章会太长也太琐碎。所以你会把最受欢迎的部分先放在一起，先做一个大的，把这个重心放在最多的跟最少的数值，把这个极端呈现出来，那剩下的部分再陆续带出就可以了。所以这个地方他把最受欢迎的喜剧片跟动作片加在一起 55%， 先跟大家说 over other genres 这个字呢是来自于法文，这字的意思就是指种类的意思，尤其是来讲到是不管是电影的文类啦，或是文学的种类，都可以用这个词哦。
Genre has a special pronunciation. Don't say genre. Don't say I don't know something. I wouldn't even know what other people would say. 这个 Gene has 有 sh 还要加一个 j 的发音 ，so sh j z。
日啊 genre 的意思就是种类的意思。
Let's continue. In third place is drama at 20%, followed by science fiction at 50%, with horror and romance films both at 5%. And 注意到 you don't need to know what any of these words mean. You're just telling us what the numbers are.
没错，所以你甚至不晓得这些到底是什么片的种类， 不认得这些字都没有关系，你只要告诉他说这个种类是这样子的比例就好了。你看这样就绕过去了，不是很简单吗？还有第二件事情就是他提到这个比例的话，你有注意到他使用的介词是用 at。好 so in the third place is drama at， 有没有？所以在这里 followed by science fiction at， 所以这边的话你帮我把这个 at 圈起来。原来在比例上的话我们可以使用 at， 然后后面有一个词叫做 followed by， 用这个东西接下来下一个，你不用一直讲的 the next。 好，在这里的话有很多不同的方式去表达 with horror and romance films both at 5%.
Be careful of how we say horror. The OR is a little bit more of an ER. So horror. It's a little bit hard to say. It's a word you have to practice. Let's continue. Although the reasons for these choices are not given, I have some theories.
OK， 接下来他告诉你说，接下来要去说明这个原因嘛。虽然在图表上面我们看不出原因，他就说 although the reasons for these choices， 这个 the reasons for something， 这个 for 也很重要。这些做出这些选择的这个背后的原因呢，没有特别提出，图表没有特别讲，但是 I have some theories， 意思就是我倒是有一些想法去解释这些原因。
Comedies tend to attract those who like humor. Action movies, meanwhile, appeal to our sense of adventure.
好，接下来他就告诉你说，为什么喜剧片跟动作片最受欢迎呢？他就说 comedies tend to attract， 好，这个地方 tend to 就是比较容易怎么样吸引 attract those who like humor， 喜欢这种幽默的这种喜剧的人，他们就会去看喜剧片，好让自己捧腹大笑。Action movies, meanwhile 指的是，而另一方面，他要讲到两件事情，前面先讲的喜剧，后面要讲的是 action films, action movies， 所以他就用 meanwhile 来表达。同时呢，这个动作片呢 appeals to our sense of adventure， 意思就是能够满足我那种爱冒险的这种感觉。
All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at paragraph 2.Hey, welcome back to Enjoy English School. Before we begin paragraph 2, we need to think about what we're going to write about. Now, in paragraph 1, I said you don't actually need to know what the words mean on your bar graph to continue with your paragraph. But if we look at our story, the writer here knows what these words mean. So what do? Well, look back at your bar graph. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kinds of movies.Comedy, action, drama, and so on and so forth. Write some adjectives right with these names, and they're going to help you build your story because you're going to have a lot more useful and colorful words to use. For example, comedy, I wrote funny. Action, guns, cars, bombs. Drama, I wrote serious. Science fiction, future, technology. Horror, I wrote scary, afraid, ghosts.Romance, I wrote loves, kiss, etc., etc. Now, that's a lot, Anthony, but I know you got it, buddy. Let's go.
OK, 好，所以老师呢给我们的建议就是，当我们在看第二段的时候，我们可以不妨做一点脑力激荡，看看上面的6个这个主题，想一些形容词啊、名词啊去搭配它。比方说像是那个 comedy 喜剧的话，老师写到是 funny。那如果 action 提到 guns， 然后或者像是 cars 那些东西，把一些重要的一些讯息，比方说像是那个 science 好，他提到什么 technology, future,
right.
这些字把它弄进去，在这个过程当中，慢慢的你在脑中故事就会开展出来，用一些形容词、名词，慢慢把这个需要讲到的元素把它给勾出来，这样就没问题了。
All right, let's jump right into our second paragraph now. My own preference is for horror films because they always make me feel excited and anxious.At the same time. Oh, I hate horror movies.
为什么 I love that. 天哪。所以这边的话你看一下哦，他这句话就讲说 My own preference， 好，我最喜欢的这个类型，我的偏好是什么呢？ Is for horror films because they always make me feel excited and anxious.At the same time， 有的人就喜欢花钱去虐待自己，对不对？在那边害怕的要死，对不对？我自己本身的话，喜欢看那个恐怖片，是在戏院看。
Yes, that's exactly what I wrote too. Go ahead. You continue. We're going to talk about it.
OK， 然后呢，在看的时候，你就会感受到整个那个气氛很棒。那老师说，他最讨厌的就是看恐怖片了。
但是 just what Anthony said. If you go to like the movie theater, I really like to see horror movies, but not in Taiwan.If I'm in America, I will go see a horror movie because Americans can be really silly in the movie theaters. And I don't know if Taiwanese would like this. But especially if it's kind of a funny or really bad horror movie, the audience will start to talk and joke, and it can be really funny. So I've seen some very bad horror movies in the movie theater and had a great time. Not because the movie was good, but because the movie was bad.
原来是这样。老师提到说呢，他以前在美国在看这个恐怖片的时候，尤其是看到恐怖片拍得很烂、很扯，然后人们就会窃窃私语说：“你看这什么东西啊？”然后反而会让整个气氛变得非常非常好玩。这在美国的话，他们会自然而然去表达说这个片子的感受，反而会是一个很有趣的经验。
Yeah, I will never watch a horror movie at home. That's a terrible idea to me. Yeah, 在家里我不要看恐怖片。Okay, here we go. These intense feelings never fail to leave me both satisfied and wanting more. Wow, that's some colorful language here.
Okay, so these intense feelings, 这种紧张的情绪 when you say intense, 我想到 intense pain 那种剧痛，所以说那个是程度上非常剧烈的，我们可以使用这个形容词 never fail to do something, 就是从来不会让我失望，怎么样呢？ Leave me both satisfied and wanting more, 始终都会让我怎么样？处在一种哇，好过瘾，好刺激 and wanting more, 我还要看更多的那种感觉。
Oh, please write down always above never fail to. Never fail to is just a really fancy, fun way of saying always. Horror movies always make me satisfied and wanting more. It's a really easy sentence, but it's much more interesting because you're using a little bit of more words we don't say every day in Taiwan. Let's continue. Although this type of movie isn't very popular among high school students, it simply proves that not everyone has the same tastes.
所以在这个地方你看他说 although 因为它相较于全部大家喜欢的东西 horror movie 只有 5% 嘛，所以他就还是会回到图表去比较自己的喜好呢是恐怖片。Although this type of movie isn't very popular among high school students, 这个地方 among 在这个群这个青少年族群里面没有那么受欢迎，所以他就最后回到图表说我自己的喜好跟一般人的喜好可能不太一样，他的恐怖片并没有那么受欢迎。 It simply proves that, 但是呢这可以证明一件事情， Not everyone has the same tastes. 好，不是每个人的品味都是相同的。
All right, so we're at the end of our story, but we're not at the end of what we can do here. So here's another suggestion. If you know you will be talking about movies, well, why don't you talk about some very famous movies, right? There are some movies that everybody has watched or has at least heard of. For example, the top 5 highest grossing movies of all time, 他们赚了最多钱, they're all action movies, every single one of them.
OK, 所以老师呢想说，如果说今天在这个地方你还可以顺便提到至少大家几乎都看过，至少听过的电影的话，其实也是个很好的做法。然后接下来老师要跟大家讲到说，以往就是影史上面票房最好，老师刚刚用到这个是 highest grossing, 这个 gross 是 GROSS 再加 ING, highest grossing 就是票房赚最多钱的这些电影，以下有介绍几部。
You could say highest earning. We usually say the word highest grossing here. So those movies, you probably have at least heard of all of them. Avatar is number 1. 2, Avengers Endgame. Number 3 is Titanic. Number 4 is Star Wars 7. And number 5 is Avengers, the best movie, Infinity War. I forgot the name. The snap. That's
Yeah, that's right. 所以老师刚刚提到非常非常多的一些片子啊，第一个阿凡达啦，或者是那个终局之战，然后再来第3部就是 Titanic。各位你们可能那时候年纪还很轻啊 ，Titanic 是1997年的片子。
That's the oldest one.
Yeah, the oldest one. 然后呢，除了这个之外，还有这个 Star Wars 7。原力觉醒，然后还有复仇者联盟3的无限之战 Infinity。 老师喜欢弹指，没有看过的同学就不晓得我们在干嘛，不过没关系啊。
Your classmates will tell you, don't worry.
Yes.
Another thing you can talk about is information we don't see. So we can also talk about, for example, there's no animated movies on this list. So there's, when you look at like what Hollywood thinks about movies, they don't talk about animated movies separately. They put them part of like action or family. So think of every Pixar Toy Story movie. You don't see them here? Really? So sometimes it's useful to talk about what you don't see.
所以有的时候呢，你也可以选择一下，讲到一些你没有看到的部分。比方说，像老师刚刚提到说 ，animated films 动画片就没有在这个上头，它可能是被归类到其他的剧情片啊，或家庭的这种片子里面。所以像老师提到什么 Toy Stories 玩具总动员，就是很好的片子，你也可以谈到一些在这个上面表格上面没有提到的东西。
All right, time for vocab review. All right, vocab review. Our first word today, to examine.
To examine 就是检查、检视的意思。
Number 2, a verb, to prefer.
Prefer 就是偏好某种事物。
Number 3, another verb, to favor.
Favor 你可以用 favor A over B， 好，这种方式表达比较喜欢 A， 不喜欢 B。
And that's our next phrase. Number 5 is a theory, and that's a countable noun.
就是理论的意思，或是你有一个想法可以解释某样东西。
Number 6, to appeal to something.
Appeal to something 就是吸引我们，吸引某种事物。
Number 7, we have an adjective, anxious.
Anxious 就是很紧张、很担心未来的事情。
Number 8, we have a phrase, to never fail to do something.
Never fail to do something 其实就是 always 的意思，但是这样讲起来比较酷。
And number 9, we have tastes.
Tastes 就是品味或是喜欢事情的偏好。
All right, and that's all the time we have for today. But we'll see you next time. For Enjoy English, I'm Chris Gorski.
I'm Anthony.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.